Welcome to this explainer. We are diving into a truly seismic structural shift happening over at Apple. The official announcement is out, and it's a big one. Tim Cook is stepping down, passing the baton over to hardware chief John Ternus. Now, you have to understand, this isn't just your standard change in leadership. It is a total pivot in Apple's DNA. So let's break down exactly what this means for the future of the devices sitting in your pocket right now. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this transition, we just have to look at the sheer size of the ship that Ternus is taking over. I mean, under Tim Cook, Apple hasn't just grown. It crossed the absolutely mind-bending $4 trillion mark. Whoever takes this job isn't just running a tech company anymore. They're essentially managing an economy that's larger than most countries. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the historic leadership transition itself. Second, Tim Cook's massive legacy. Third, we'll officially meet CEO John Ternus. And fourth, we'll explore the hardware visionary's impact. Okay, Section 1, a historic leadership transition. Let's look at the actual power shift. Apple is executing a meticulously planned succession here. They are not rushing this at all. The transition was announced in April of 2026, and Cook and Ternus are spending the entire summer collaborating closely on a smooth handoff. It's honestly textbook corporate governance. The whole process is designed to ensure absolute market stability before Ternus officially takes the crown on September 1st. It's kind of like a perfectly choreographed domino effect. On September 1st, the whole board structure shifts. Now, Cook doesn't actually leave. Instead, he elevates to executive chairman to focus purely on high-level global strategy. Ternus takes the CEO slot and grabs a board seat. And to make room for all of this, Arthur Levinson transitions to lead independent director after spending 15 years as chairman. Moving on to Section 2, Tim Cook's massive legacy. Let's quantify this era of growth. When Tim Cook took the reins from Steve Jobs back in 2011, Apple was pulling in a very impressive $108 billion in revenue. But by the end of fiscal 2025, well, that number jumped to over $416 billion. He essentially quadrupled the company's yearly revenue, pulling off an absolute masterclass in global scaling. But it wasn't just about the cash. It was really about capturing our attention. Cook grew the active installed device base to an incredible 2.5 billion. Think about that for a second. That means roughly a quarter of the entire global population, including you, who's likely listening to this on one right now, interacts with an Apple ecosystem every single day. So what do you actually do with 2.5 billion active devices? Well, you sell them subscriptions, right? Cook fundamentally transformed Apple's recurring revenue by building the services sector into a more than $100 billion titan. To put that into perspective, if iCloud, Apple Music, and Apple Pay just split off tomorrow, they would literally be a Fortune 40 company all on their own. And beyond the balance sheet, Cook changed how the whole company operates. He created entirely new product categories with the Apple Watch, AirPods, and Vision Pro. He executed that massive, highly complex pivot to Apple-designed silicon and managed to cut their carbon footprint by over 60% since 2015. Add to that his really aggressive stance on user privacy as a human right, and, well, he leaves behind an impossibly high bar. All right, Section 3, meet CEO John Ternus, the hardware veteran stepping into the spotlight. Ternus didn't just parachute in from some competitor. The guy is an absolute Apple lifer. He started in product design way back in 2001, quietly grinded his way up to VP of Hardware Engineering in 2013, hit the executive team in 2021, and is now taking the very top job in 2026. He has literally been silently shaping the tech in our lives for a quarter of a century. Tim Cook is famously known as a supply chain and operations genius. But by passing the reins to Ternus, Apple is putting a pure mechanical engineer at the absolute top. As Cook himself noted, Ternus has the mind of an engineer, the soul of an innovator, and the heart to lead with integrity and with honor. It's a massive signal to the industry. Apple's future relies on getting back to deeply integrated physical hardware innovation. What is so fascinating about Ternus's own perspective is how he bridges two completely different eras. He recently said, "Having spent almost my entire career at Apple, I have been lucky to have worked under Steve Jobs and to have had Tim Cook as my mentor." He represents this rare connective tissue that carries half a century of Apple's foundational DNA right into the future. Which brings us to Section 4, the hardware visionary's impact. So what does a Ternus-led Apple actually build? Well, his recent track record is just full of massive hits. He drove the new MacBook Neo, he championed the incredibly thin iPhone Air alongside the redefined iPhone 17 lineup, he helps bring ANC and hearing health capabilities to AirPods, and pushed wearables into wild new territory with the Apple Watch Ultra 3. I really want to single out what he did with AirPods because it's a true game changer. This wasn't just some standard audio upgrade. His team engineered them into an all-in-one hearing health system, essentially creating over-the-counter hearing aids. It is just the perfect marriage of complex hardware engineering and real-world accessible human health. And Ternus is also clearly obsessed with material science. He's the one championing the use of a recycled aluminum compound across multiple product lines to hit those strict environmental targets. But at the same time, he's pushing cutting-edge tech like 3D printed titanium for the Apple Watch Ultra 3. He's proving that hitting green targets absolutely doesn't mean you have to sacrifice ultra-premium durability. Tim Cook scaled Apple into the ultimate, inescapable $4 trillion ecosystem. Now, the keys belong to a man who has spent 25 years obsessing over physical design, raw materials, and precision hardware engineering. So, with a mechanical engineer officially running the show, what entirely new realities will Apple build for us next? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you on the next one.